Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the depression category of things. So if that's something you've been wanting to know about, stay tuned for this video. Hi y'all, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Jessica Lane, and this channel is all things trauma, the brain, and healing. So if that's your jam, go ahead and click that subscribe button below so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And while you're at it, jump over to Instagram. Follow me over on Instagram where there's tips, tricks, little mental health related content also interwoven in there that you will find interesting. I'm also trying to get to that 10K follower count so I can get the swipe up feature and just connect everything nice and neat. So again, follow me on Instagram, click subscribe here, and check out all my videos. I create content for the month of January, at least every single day, but typically it's once a week. So today I am going to jump in and talk about the depression disorder category of things and how to tease out whether you have major depression or you have trauma, or is it both going on. So I'm going to start out like I did in the previous video when I talked about borderline personality disorder. Check that out also, by reading the actual category for major depression. Major depressive disorder. A. 5 or more of the following symptoms have been present during the same 2-week period and represent a change from previous functioning. At least one of the symptoms is either 1. A depressed mood, or 2. Loss of interest or pleasure. Note: do not include symptoms that are clearly attributable to another medical condition. Number 1. Depressed mood, most of the day, nearly every day, as indicated by either subjective report, feel sad, empty, hopeless, or observation made by others, appears tearful. In children and adolescents, can be irritable mood. Number 2. Markedly diminished interest or pleasure in all or almost all activities, most of the day, nearly every day, as indicated by either subjective account or observation. Number 3. Significant weight loss when not dieting or weight gain, a change of more than 5% of body weight in a month, or decrease or increase in appetite nearly every day. Note: in children, consider failure to make expected weight gain. Number 4. Insomnia or hypersomnia. Hypersomnia is sleeping more, nearly every day. Number 5. Psychomotor agitation. So that's being more active, inability to sit still, or retardation. So that's like not being able to move basically, or you're moving a lot slower. So one is you're moving more rapidly, and then the other one is you're moving a lot slower. Nearly every day, observable by others, not merely subjective feelings of restlessness or being slowed down. Number 6. Fatigue or loss of energy, nearly every day. Number 7. Feelings of worthlessness or excessive or inappropriate guilt, which may be delusional, nearly every day, not merely self-reproach or guilt about being sick. Number 8. Diminished ability to think or concentrate or indecisiveness, nearly every day, either by subjective account or as observed by others. Number 9. Recurrent thoughts of death, not just fear of dying, recurrent suicidal ideation without a specific plan or a suicide attempt or a specific plan for committing suicide. Part B. The symptoms cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. C. The episode is not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance or to another medical condition. Note: criterion A through C represent a major depressive episode. Note: responses to a significant loss, bereavement, financial ruin, losses from a natural disaster, a serious medical condition or disability, may include the feelings of intense sadness, rumination about the loss, insomnia, poor appetite, and weight loss noted in criterion A, which may resemble a depressive episode. Although such symptoms may be understandable or considered appropriate to the loss, the presence of a major depressive episode, in addition to the normal responses to a significant loss, should also be carefully considered. This decision inevitably requires the exercise of clinical judgment based on the individual's history and the cultural norms for the expression of distress in context of loss. D. The occurrence of the major depressive episode is not better explained by schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia, schizophreniform disorder, delusional disorder, or other specified and unspecified schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. E. There has never been a manic episode or a hypomanic episode. Note, this exclusion does not apply if all of the manic-like or hypomanic-like episodes are substance-induced, or are attributable to the physiological effects of another medical condition. So I'm sure you just tuned out at some point and was like, whoa, that's a lot. I didn't know major depression was that complex. Yes, major depression is that complex. One of the distinctions between a major depressive episode or having major depression as a disorder from trauma is that oftentimes when you're looking at depression, things in the depression category, there is this neurochemical kind of imbalance. There's a dip in serotonin and dopamine levels that cause some of these symptoms. And once the person starts taking medication, they see a resolution of many of these symptoms, and they have psychotherapy, and they can talk. They also talk about what's going on, and they learn some new skills. When you're talking about trauma, you have with trauma, because of the impacts of the harm that was done to you by another adult, your belief system about who you are, about the world, about other people, is kind of, it's very negative, and it's kind of like surrounded by this dark cloud, for lack of a better word. And so you might feel, really bad about yourself. You might feel, your emotions are going to vacillate a little bit more strongly because you have this sensitized stress response system. And so you might feel like you're feeling your emotions much more intensely and more strongly. And you have these traumatic responses that cause you to kind of pull away from people, or and be by yourself, or to really cling on and attach more to others based off of your fight, flight, freeze response. And so understanding that one occurs because of a specific trigger, and the other just kind of, and as you read through, not because of something specific that happens. It's just like, you just started feeling really low and really sad all of a sudden. And one of the things to note about depression or major depressive episodes is that once somebody has already had a major depressive episode, they're susceptible to having other episodes. And these multiple episodes can give you a major depressive disorder diagnosis. And so for many folks, the teen years, early teen years, middle school years are really tough, are really hard, and that's when people are kind of going through that, questioning their identity. They're feeling very stressed. They might feel sad. They might feel worthless. They go through these bouts, but because well-meaning parents and counselors or whatever miss it, kids will go into kind of have their first major depressive episode during that time, but because it wasn't caught, it wasn't really treated, the person just kind of moved on or learned to kind of ignore it or what have you, it goes away and no big deal. But then something else happens in life and then it comes back. You kind of get what I'm saying? And so it's one of those things that if you looked back into your childhood and you don't have a history of trauma, you don't have a history of attachment disruptions or problems in that realm, but you do remember, kind of always feeling a little bit down, feeling a little bit off, sleeping more, just kind of questioning certain things, then that's more where you're looking at a major depressive episode and a major depression, as opposed to a trauma where you can look at your history and maybe it's like, yeah, I was sexually abused at this age, that age, and yeah, I'm depressed. Well, because you now have your sense of safety, your sense of people in the world is colored by this traumatic experiences that you had during your childhood. So when you can look for like a clear antecedent where there was some traumatic or early adverse experiences that happened in your life, and the other, you can't really pinpoint any type of trauma. You just always kind of felt like that. And clients that I've worked with will say that they've always kind of felt, even when they were kids, they felt depressed. And again, no mental health disorder occurs in a vacuum. The one thing that you'll notice whenever I read anything about in the DSM for mental health disorders is that it will often say cannot be attributed to a medical condition or substance abuse. And that's because with substance abuse, like that plays with your hormones and all of that stuff. And with a medical condition, same thing, like there's something that's biologically off, and so you might be getting treatment or meds that also will play with the way your hormones interact. And so if those two things are weeded out, you can have multiple mental health diagnoses at the same time. So you can have a PTSD diagnosis as well as a depression diagnosis. Both of those things can exist. But what we want to do, and why I'm like just talking about common misdiagnoses, is because you need to treat that and heal that unresolved trauma before you can start to attack some of this depression or anxiety or whatever else, you know, the other ones I'm going to talk about, because the trauma and the trauma reactions and the traumas, the trauma mechanisms are the primary drivers and the ones that are usually causing the most amount of distress and have to do with kind of how you feel about yourself and like your capabilities, etc., etc. So that's why I'm doing this video, just to kind of help people weed out if you're kind of struggling, or you're wondering why you're feeling depressed. Oftentimes, again, for a major depressive episode, you're going to look for kind of, it's always been there. Nothing, you can't really pinpoint anything in your childhood. Where when you're looking at trauma, you're looking at it from the perspective of a child who doesn't have that cognitive ability like we adults do. And so it's their interpretation of what's happening in their surroundings, right? And you might not remember that feeling, but think, if you just watch a video of a 7-year-old or a 5-year-old, or if you see a 7-year-old or a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and how small they are, and the way and have a conversation with them, their understanding of the world is so limited and it's so basic, and they have all kinds of fears and anxiety, and they need us adults to tell them that things are going to be okay. They need us to make them feel safe, and if those things are missing, then the stress response system is left to just kind of run amok and there's no resolution, then you're gonna get this unresolved trauma that is the stress response system that didn't complete any of those complete its natural cycle. So that's all I have for you today. Comment down below, let me know what is something that you think I maybe missed or didn't talk about with regard to major depressive disorder, that maybe you want to know. Comment down below, let's have a conversation. And that's all I have for you today, and I will see you in the next one.